Another area where we did not come to consensus in the Basic Education Funding Commission had to do with formulas and data for determining poverty. So the basic education funding formula that you've recommended uses census data to determine poverty counts, while the adequacy formula uses economically disadvantaged data, which is self-reported by districts. Census data for basic education funding, and then economically disadvantaged data self-reported by school districts for adequacy. Why do the two formulas use different metrics to determine rates of poverty?
So we use the model that was in the commission.
You and I spent 8 months together. I know what you're going to tell me. I want to hear it from the secretary, please. Thank you.
Respectfully, we're looking at the BEFC Commission, and you spoke earlier of my attendance. I am the secretary. I'm sitting in the room.
Secretary, the question I'm asking you is why do the two formulas use different metrics to determine rates of poverty as presented in your budget?
Right. I, again, agree with the proposal of the BEFC.
I understand you agree with it. I'm trying to understand why you use two different formulas to determine poverty in the proposal that you put forward, one for basic education funding, one for adequacy funding. Look, I'm concerned about the integrity of a formula that is based on self-reported economically disadvantaged data. It leaves the door open for schools to overcount their subsidy amounts, which would take funding away from school districts that are going to accurately report that data. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I have this document right here. Your own department listed the pros and cons of the various data sources that we could use, and the formula that the governor suggests we use and you suggest has the highest number of cons compared to the others based on what your department shared with us. So again, can you explain why you would pick two different formulas or two different metrics to determine the rates of poverty, and then pick the most flawed data set to drive out that significant amount of funding as the governor has proposed based on what your department told you about these different data sets?
Again, as we look at the BEFC, I have to respect the recommendation, one. Secondly, we made the commitment, and we're making the commitment, continue to make the commitments to work with our LEAs and external partners around this work.
So how are you going to guarantee that there will be accuracy and integrity in the formula because of the ability of schools to just simply self-report their data?
And one of the things that our agency does very well, we are a technical support agency, and we are an agency, again, that is responsible for housing accountability data.
Are you going to audit the school districts in terms of how they report that data, and how do you intend to accomplish that?
Senator Hill, you're in constant communication with PDE. You know that we are a collaborative agency.
I understand that. What I just don't understand still, after we've engaged in this conversation, is why two different sets of data are being used to determine poverty for two separate formulas, and how you're going to assure the accuracy and integrity of those numbers.
Senator Hill, the answer, again, we're looking at the BEFC's recommendations. My only concern, and I believe it's appropriate for me to say this, when we talk about my direct recommendation or my legacy, we need to stop. This is collectively
Sir, I'm not
ours.
talking about your legacy. I'm simply talking about the presentation that we have been given by the governor, and asking two very simple questions. Why are you and your department and the governor using two separate data sets to determine poverty? And why did you choose a data set that your own department said lacked the accuracy and integrity?
This is based on the recommendations of the BEFC.
Well, you didn't put the recommendations from the BEFC report in for funding over the next 5 years, but you chose to use the flawed data set that your own department said was not adequate. Nor did it have accuracy and integrity. So still have a lot of questions for you, Mr. Secretary, and I think this is not an acceptable answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.